Well, good morning. It is Thursday, April 16th, and this is our history class today. So, once you get your books out, we're going to read together pages 281 to 283. And so, go ahead and get those out, and we'll start reading. If you want to pause and while you go get your book, that's fine, because I'm getting ready to start reading right now. First thing I want you to notice is, well, we'll go ahead and we'll read a little bit first, but then we'll get to his character there at the bottom right. Mussolini in Italy, Il Duce. Young Mussolini. Benito Mussolini was born in 1883 in Italy. His father was a tough, strong blacksmith who taught young Benito to stand up against anyone who bullied him. Italy was a constitutional monarchy, but Benito's father was a socialist. As he worked, he often talked to Benito about politics. Benito's mother was a schoolteacher. She was gentle and compassionate. She often worried about Benito's violent temper. Her desire was for Benito to become a teacher like herself. She persuaded his father to send him to the finest schools. Later, Benito graduated and earned a certificate to teach. He went on to teach at a school for a brief time. Then Benito Mussolini left Italy and went to Switzerland. For months, he went from job to job. He even worked in a chocolate factory, but no job satisfied him. Mussolini wanted to do something great. He wanted other people to respect him and follow him. From his boyhood, Mussolini had been interested in politics. In Switzerland, this interest continued. By the way, let's go back a little bit. On this part where it talks about he wanted other people to respect him and follow him. There's a sin that falls under, which may really a lot of sins fall under. It's called pride. And Mussolini, and you'll notice this with a lot of people. People who have a tendency to have a strength in leadership or desire to lead often have the worldly mindset of how to do that. Now, obviously, Mussolini was not a saved person, especially with the things that you find out he does later on in his life. But that whole desire for people to respect him because he's worried about what people think about him. And he you'll find out later on, you look at the top one next to where his head is there, says Mussolini was a violent child and was expelled from school at 10 years of age for knifing a classmate. Anger like that's out of control. Later on, when that person has power, they'll use that power when they're angry about something. And that's a dangerous thing for anybody to happen to anybody. So anyway, let's go back. So from his boyhood, Mussolini had been interested in politics. In Switzerland, this interest continued. He spent most of his evenings in cozy little restaurants called cafes. In these places, he discussed political ideas with other Europeans. Mussolini listened excitedly to their ideas about government. One idea was to have government run by ordinary working-class people. This was the same idea that Mussolini's father believed. Mussolini returned to Italy and became involved in the Socialist Party. He wrote and edited articles for a socialist newspaper. He stirred up workers in revolts and strikes. Once he led a violent mob in a riot through the city streets. He was even put in jail several times. Eventually, Mussolini became a leader in the Socialist Party. After World War I began in 1914, the Socialists did not believe Italy should join the war, but Mussolini saw advantages for the nation if it joined the Allies. He thought that Italy could become a more powerful nation through the war. He lost favor with the Socialists for taking his position, but he stood firm in his views. When Italy finally joined the war with the Allies, Mussolini fought on the front lines. Now go back to the previous page, and you find here about Mussolini. It says, he, of course, that thing about knifing his classmate, and then you have there in the middle, as a young man, he carried a nickel medallion of Karl Marx in his pocket. Now, Karl Marx, if you don't know who he is, maybe some of you do, and you can say right now, yes, I know who he is. And so you'll find out in a second. Karl Marx was he wrote a book about communism, and he was basically the father of modern-day communism. And so the medallion of Karl Marx showed his belief in what Karl Marx was teaching. And it was communism, by the way, communism and socialism are very closely tied together. Socialism would be more of the government. Communism is more of the actual philosophy. So anyway, they're tied closely together. And so in bottom there, in 1926, a woman attempted to assassinate Mussolini from close range. She missed his head but shot his nose. The doctors repaired his nose, and his would-be assassin spent the rest of her life in an asylum. Apparently, she could see something in him that later on became true. That probably was